Welcome, Southwestern Illinois College students. Cybercrime AOJ 258. We're going to go over Chapter 6, and your questions are going to come directly out of here. So I'm going to share my screen here so we can go over this. And here we go. Chapter 6, Terrorism and Organized Crime. Learning objectives: understand concepts of terrorism, learn the impact of the internet on terrorism and OC, organized crime, develop a working knowledge of organized crime, and understand the characteristics of organized crime. President Bush said some time ago that we will never forget September 11th. Never forget that, especially those who plotted against us. The traditional approaches: Osama bin Laden, World Trade Center bombing, thousands killed, including 343 firemen. Method: American Airlines, Oklahoma City bombing, 1995, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. 1983 U.S. Embassy bombing and the Islamic Jihad claim responsibility. Hezbollah. Here's one of your questions. Question number 2, Oklahoma City bombing. How did Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols get caught for the Oklahoma City bombing? So question number 1 is, how did they get caught? What was their mistake? Defining terrorism. There's a lot of different definitions, and it has significantly changed throughout the years. One of the most recent definitions is an act of violence, victimization of innocence. Serial operations, advanced planning, criminal character, absence of moral restraints, political demands, attempts to garner attention. All of that, it goes on and on, but you can see how it's morphed throughout the years, the definition of terrorism. Classification through motivation. Well, it's often overlooked. The individual terrorism is often overlooked due to minimal impact. But when you look at the political social terrorism, it's most ambiguous. They seek to overthrow some form of government. Cases in point: American colonists and Fidel Castro, that all the things that the United States of America tried to do with Cuba, and national terrorism. So this PowerPoint is actually on under lesson number 6. You can pull it up if you want when we're done and go back through some of these. Classification through motivation: environmental, state-sponsored, and religious. There's all these different reasons why people commit terrorism. So what are some of the roots or the contemporary reasons of terrorism? Well, historical events literally started at the very beginning with Julius Caesar. It goes back a long time ago, and it has to do with making people afraid. Terrorism is a stage: pre-planning, promotion, final performance. There's always a set of things that people do. No one just shows up and automatically one day commits an act of terrorism. It takes a while to create that terroristic event. Think about September 11th, the immense planning that went into it. Cyber terrorism as a concept. Cyber terrorism notion has been rejected by many who argue that terrorism requires a display of physical, catastrophic, or suffering. However, I want you to think about this. Cyber terrorism: imagine that a cyber terrorist takes down all of the power on the eastern coast of the United States of America. How many people will die from that? How many people are on breathing machines? How many people will die without the air in their lungs? How many people will die without the power in their house? So even though it doesn't always have to be a big explosion or airplanes, it can be something that is catastrophic in a big way. Defining cyber terrorism: the premeditated, methodological, ideological, motivated dissemination of information, facilitating communication or attack against digital information computer systems and or computer program which requires advanced planning and is intended to result in a social, financial, physical, or physiological harm to non-combatant targets and audiences, or any dissemination of information which is designed to facilitate such action. So let me summarize this. Here's what I want you to do. Question number 2, research some act of cyber terrorism against the United States of America and explain what happened. Now you're going to do this in short order. I don't want any more than a paragraph, but that's question number 2. Find some sort of cyber terrorism, not a cyber crime, but cyber terrorism that was attempted to be committed against the United States of America. Utilization of the internet. Well, obviously propaganda, information dissemination, recruiting, and fundraising, training, communication, research, planning, attack mechanism. You find out all the time that many terroristic events were planned through the internet. Propaganda, think about all these different categories of justification and why they do what they do. Training, following the lead of legitimate organizations which have turned to web-based training, cheaper, less vulnerable to law enforcement. Methods of training vary. Now let's go back to cheaper and less vulnerable to law enforcement. If they train via the internet to do these terroristic events, it's hard for us to drop a bomb on them, or to send in, SEAL Team 6 to take them out in a training camp. If they're training over the internet, it's a lot tougher to do that. Research, planning, and communication. So I want you to think about this. I want you to come up with question number 3 is how, well, let me throw this out there. Imagine how terrorists can communicate about their terroristic events that they're going to do using video games. So I'll say that again, using video games, how can terrorists plan their terroristic events? So think about that. You can pull this PowerPoint back up to actually help you too with that. The attack mechanism, either the physical infrastructure, critical data, physical infrastructure, critical data, it covers all of them. Imagine that a cyber terrorist gets involved inside one of our servers, and all of a sudden everybody's financial history disappears. What happens to people? People start jumping out of windows because everything is gone, right? Criminal activities, anywhere from identity theft, fraudulent documents, drug trafficking, money laundering, all occur through those types of things. And think about, I think I mentioned in previous that many aspects of terrorist events are actually funded through identity theft. Criminalizing terrorist acts, international, domestic, terrorist financing, all of this. There's Title 18, there's a lot of other federal laws. Whenever you see a title, that's always a federal law that make these types of events illegal. Government efforts, all these different types of things they put into place to try to thwart these types of things. Question number 4. You are to research what tip-off database is. What is tip-off database with the State Department, and write a little bit of less than a paragraph over what that is. That's question number 4. Difficulties with prosecution. Well, one of the questions that you guys asked early or answered early on was covering what are these jurisdictional issues that people see, the inconsistency in it. Well, think about the borderless nature of cyberspace. How do you prosecute someone way out in the middle of nowhere in a different country, and you can't fly out and talk to them or arrest them? So all these difficulties are there. Wireless communications, lack of international consensus and cooperation that it's actually a crime. And, not everybody likes the United States, so sometimes they just don't cooperate. Let's switch gears here just for a second, and I want you to think about organized crime. So we're not talking about cyber crime right now, we're talking about organized crimes. One of the defining issues of the 21st century, like the Cold War for the 20th century, hazardous to national security. Organized crime means that they are very well planned out in the things that they do. Organized crime are increasingly turning to technology. Emergence is most common during economic depression. You think about the organized crime groups of Chicago and New York and LA and how they organize. Well, a lot of times it's when times are tough and they take over things. Defining organized crimes, well, the definitions vary. Most are inaccurate, developed for particular agendas. And a lot of them kind of focus on like La Cosa Nostra, but the reality is they're all different types of things when it comes to organized crime. Some early definitions, you can see them here. It was a lot of times specific to a group that they wanted to go after. It goes on and on. You can see how it moves up throughout the years. Look at 1968, the Omnibus Crime Bill and Safe Streets Act. The definition is the unlawful activities of a highly organized disciplined association engaged in supplying illegal goods and services, including but not limited to gambling, prostitution, loan sharking, narcotics, labor, racketeering, and other lawful activities. So obviously it changes, but look at these words here, and you can, as you kind of scan through them, you're going to see that it starts developing a theme. And you look at these groups. Question number 5. I want you to pick on question number 5, 3 of these and explain why they are organized crime. You pick 3 of them, explain in short order in a paragraph why they are organized crime. Okay? Distinguishing organized crime from cyber gangs. Well, organized crime, you know, we kind of talked about that. The definition we just kind of went over. This is pretty similar to it, as opposed to cyber gangs or cyber criminals are literally brought together through the medium of the internet. So that's really the difference. Organized crime is in person. Cyber gang, cyber crime is really their main focus of communication in their crimes is through the internet, right? Contemporary approaches to traditional crimes, you can see all the different types of things that they do there. Let's go back, look at the human smuggling at the very end. It's amazing how prevalent that is. Confronting contemporary organized crime, some things to consider. Diversity among the groups, recognition of economic motivation, like why do they do what they do? And recognition that traditional hacking methods employed by OC groups are innovative. So in other words, they start changing to the times. You know, the mafia years ago would have laughed at sending an email or being involved in an internet crime until the young people brought up and told them, look, you can make a lot more money, a lot easier, and you don't have to shoot and kill people. So look through these, you can get an idea of all the different things that they're doing. So what are some intersections of organized crime and terrorism? Well, they're both increasingly sophisticated, similar methodologies. They do use the web to engage in money laundering, use the webs as communicating. Both are prevalent environments of minimal government controls, weak enforcement of law, and open borders. So United States of America, it's pretty easy to do, but other countries, it's even easier. So look through those and you can see how a lot of that becomes literally blurred in a lot of ways. So you have a few questions to answer. Pull up the PowerPoint. You can pull it back up or you can download it. Answer those questions and submit it. You can use the internet. You can use your book and have fun with it. I'll see you soon.